Hi everyone, it's Rachel back with the Shades of Orange. Today I wanted to do a bit of a quick fun video, and that is ranking my top 5 favorite subgenres of horror when it comes to books. This list is of course super subjective. It's all my personal taste, so you don't have to agree. All that being said, let's get started. Now in the number 5 spot, I want to go with doll stories, specifically creepy doll stories. Even though I don't have a phobia of dolls, there is something just really unnerving about little toys that are made to look like people, and I just find that they are done really well in stories. Authors have a lot of ability to get creative, and a lot of times you find these dolls getting animated or are just a little too lifelike, and for whatever reason these stories work so well for me. I just find them creative and fun and surprisingly creepy, so definitely dolls had to make the number 5 spot on my list. Now in the number 4 spot, I have to go with body horror. People might be surprised that's not higher up on this list, and that's probably because the fact that while I love it as a subgenre, it doesn't exist on its own. Typically body horror is an aspect of the story, but it does tend to have to be crossed with a different category of horror. But you know me, I love body horror. It's kind of my buzzword. I talk about it all the time on my channel, and I describe body horror as something that involves doing something to a person's body. So whether it be sewing skin or hacking off limbs. And the reason I like this in stories is the fact that it creates such a visceral reaction in me. I am a very desensitized reader, as many of you know, so I can read a lot of dark and disturbing stuff without it bothering me. But for whatever reason, that body horror really just gets my stomach twisting and turning. I can't eat while I'm reading that kind of content. And I like the fact that it really gives me that reaction, and because of that it definitely had to make my list, because you know me, I love me some body horror. Now in the number 3 spot, I'm gonna go with slasher stories. Of course everyone loves a good slasher movie, but I really enjoy reading them as well. For me, slasher stories are fun horror, so when I'm looking for something lighthearted, enjoyable, often something to read during the summer, I turn to slashers because that's how I roll. And there's something I find just really fun and almost comforting about these stories where there's a maniac on the loose just hacking everyone down. It's kind of a very classic cliche type of story. You generally know what's gonna happen, but regardless, they work so well for me and I just really love them. Now in the number 2 spot, I'm gonna go with home invasion stories because I love the fact that they play into realistic horror, which is a larger subgenre of horror that I really enjoy because the fact that those situations are possible. You don't need to believe in a supernatural element in order to buy into the scariness of the story. I'm someone who goes to bed and has to check their locks and then often wakes up in the night and checks them again. So the idea of someone breaking into my home is absolutely terrifying. And because of that, these stories work really well for me. I get really immersed and connected to the characters, and I just find them really stressful to read, but in a really good way. So I definitely love a good home invasion story. And finally, in the number 1 spot, you might be able to guess it, but my favorite subgenre of horror is possession stories. If you have followed along with my channel and watched a lot of my booktube horror recommendation videos, you might have noticed the fact that there's a lot of possession stories in there. And I say that's because I grew up Catholic and have that background where, while I don't actually believe in the supernatural, it's kind of been drilled into me that some of the things involving possession and exorcism are potentially real, and that just always kind of niggles in the back of my brain. And because of that, I find the stories a little bit extra scary. I also find that possession stories tend to have a psychological aspect because often you are trying to decide whether or not the character is possessed or simply going crazy, which is one of my favorite tropes in the horror genre. So possession stories are absolutely my favorite subgenre, and if you tell me a book has a possession element in it, I definitely will check it out because I cannot get enough of them. I've read everything I can get my hands on, and most of my favorite horror stories are honestly possession because it's just my kind of thing. So that's it for this video. Those are 5 of my favorite subgenres when it comes to horror. I would love to see your list, so feel free to rank your top 5 down below. As well, if you have recommendations for books that you think would fit with my reading taste, I always enjoy some recommendations. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you haven't already, feel free to like, comment, and subscribe and hit that little bell icon. And otherwise, I will talk to you again soon in another video. Okay, bye-bye.